Biden's not running the government, so like, I don't know. I've never been this worried about anything as I am about where this is going.
Once you see it, you'll understand the future the Democratic Party is planning for you. Squalid, overcrowded, chaotic, loud.
In a haunting revelation, Tucker Carlson plunges the nation into a chilling prophecy, foretelling a future for America shrouded in darkness, a vision that sends shivers down the collective spine.
It's amazing to me that any honest person of good faith could look at the facts that the largest and most powerful intel agency and largest and most powerful law enforcement agency in the world, U.S. government agency, CIA and FBI, rigged this election by suppressing that. And just stop there, by telling the social media companies not to permit it, by lying in public.
I do know two people well personally who from fentanyl that was manufactured in Mexico and allowed by the Mexican government to come here. Now, I'm not against Mexico. I grew up right next to it. I kind of like Mexico, actually. But the Mexican government allows that. And over 100,000 Americans every year from that poison. Not because they were addicts who took too much. When it has no definition, anyone can be guilty of it. It's hard to relax in a country like that. The old system was better. Government operated on the basis of laws, not amorphous moral. Politicians couldn't accuse you of something they couldn't define.
They rigged the election. So how could you, and leaving aside any questions about electronic voting machines, which are fair questions in my opinion, and stopping the count on election night, if all you knew was that, how could you say that was a legitimate election? It's not a legitimate election. And if that was happening in Moldova or Belarus or Congo, the State Department would issue a statement saying that was not a free and fair election. We did not have a free and fair election.
With the somber demeanor of a modern-day prophet, Carlson unveils a narrative that leaves the nation trembling on the precipice of uncertainty, a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked societal trends.
Wake up tomorrow, move to the Bahamas, start a fake cryptocurrency, defraud 1 million investors around the world of billions of dollars. I'm just saying you could do it, and I'm not recommending it. Note to the FEC, not recommending it. But you could do that.
The legal code was straightforward. Child was having unfashionable opinions was not. Outside of the public sphere, the population mostly governed itself, as it does in every society, and used taboos to do it. You knew what was allowed and what wasn't because the rules didn't change very often.
Yeah, I've heard that clip 1,000 times. Every time it renders me speechless. That's the end of democracy. And I don't know how you can, in the same sentence, say, I'm for democracy, and then say, actually, our country is run by a shadowy intel agency no one elected and no one has oversight over. I mean, it's not a democratic republic if the CIA can punish you as an elected president for doing things that they don't like. They're your employees. Speaking of the housekeeper taking over the house, they're like your housekeeper. Shut up and make the bed. Like the point of the CIA, as originally conceived, was to inform the president of what's going on around the world so he can make better foreign policy decisions. So the intel gathering apparatus of the US president, they work for him. They have no constitutional legitimacy outside of him. Our system's super simple. The people who are elected by the public have all the power. They have employees to whom they delegate that power to get things done. But those employees have no independent power at all and no independent legitimacy. The CIA is a totally illegitimate organization unless it is following precisely the orders of the elected president. Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. So he's describing the people committing that in CIA should be in prison for long terms. That's the great threat to democracy right there. And the fact that no one on that set could even see that tells you how deeply corrupted they are. That's terrifying. And it's true, I happen to know. And I could bore you for hours, again, since I spent my life there and know a lot of people who work there. But the bottom line is there's no oversight at all. They were able to participate in the murder of a US president and then hide that fact for 60 years by keeping those documents classified, which they still are. It's unbelievable. And it's happening in front of all of us, and nobody seems to care. But, you know, as the country declines and the democratic institutions weaken, and you wonder, how did this happen? Well, that's how it happened, right there.
His words reverberate like an ominous dirge, compelling us to confront the grim reality that looms on the horizon. A future marred by division, turmoil, and a departure from cherished values.
People might have like a balanced view of you. He's really smart, good guy, got a little over his skis, as we say. But like, I'm not gonna hate on him, right? We all make mistakes. Like, who here, raise your hand if you haven't defrauded 1 million investors with a fake cryptocurrency. Okay, there are some. You cast the first stone then. Those kinds of, which is to say, actual, like burning down buildings, impoverishing people, starting totally counterproductive wars we can't win that a lot of our citizens, leaving the border open so 7 million people can walk across. Those are not small things. That's like, it's not all like forgetting to fold your napkin correctly at Thanksgiving. Those are like actually kind of world historic. Never punished. What are the that are punished? Thinking the wrong thing, having the wrong beliefs, saying unapproved words. And those words are always true. They are always true. So when you hear somebody, and by the way, it's so hard to know what's true. I mean, often, to the extent I ever talk to people, which is fairly rarely, no, but like, you know, going through an airport or something, I hate the news. It's all so dishonest. Where do you get your news? And I always try to be honest and say I don't get any news. I don't read any news. Are you joking? I haven't had a TV in like decades. I wouldn't read the New York Times. I don't want that in my head.
As the nation watches with bated breath, Carlson's voice becomes a dire plea for those who still hold hope for a brighter tomorrow, urging us all to acknowledge the critical crossroads we face.
I mean, look, if, they protested him, they called him names. He won anyway. They impeached him twice on ridiculous pretenses. They fabricated a lot about what happened on January 6th in order to impeach him again. It didn't work. He came back, then they indicted him. It didn't work. He became more popular. Then they indicted him 3 more times, and every single time his popularity rose. So if you begin with criticism, then you go to protest, then you go to impeachment, now you go to indictment, and none of them work, what's next? I mean, graph it out, man. We're speeding toward, obviously, and no one will say that, but I don't know how you can reach that conclusion. You know what I mean? Like, they have decided, permanent Washington, both parties have decided that there's something about Trump that's so threatening to them, they just can't have it. I mean, they're putting him on trial in March of next year in the J6 case, which basically consists of trying to send him to prison for the rest of his life for complaining about the last election. That's literally what it is. Again, if this were happening in Moldova, the State Department would issue an all-hands-on-deck order to let the world know this is not a legitimate government. And yet our government is doing it. It's like, it's really hard to overstate how bad this is. And I don't know where it's going, but there's a collision that's clearly imminent. And by the way, the president is senile in a way that's impossible to deny. Biden's not running the government, so like, I don't know, man. I've never been this worried about anything as I am about where this is going.
So the pictures you just saw are shocking. They're also real, so they can't be ignored. In the coming days, you'll hear what's happening at the border described as a humanitarian crisis. That means the migrants are suffering, and they definitely are suffering, and that's sad. But what's sadder is that Americans are suffering too. Open borders have caused a crisis among the very people our government supposedly exists to protect. Close to 100,000 Americans have overdoses in the last year. These are not 85-year-olds with emphysema in nursing homes. These are kids on your street, young people in the prime of life, our country's future, the next generation. And they are now, mostly because of fentanyl that came up through Mexico.
Within this exploration of societal challenges, a tapestry of foreboding scenarios unfolds, inviting everyone to contemplate the profound impact of current choices on the nation's fate.
So why are we telling you all this about fentanyl? Because the rise in the consumption of fentanyl mirrors the rise in the availability of fentanyl, which is causing the massive rise in by fentanyl OD. And all of that is a result of the Biden administration's immigration policy. When you open the borders, it's not just people who comes in, it's massive amounts of fentanyl and other illegal. So the Biden administration tells you that their border policy is, quote, humane.